Okay. Well, I'm glad you've all joined me this afternoon. We'll take a few minutes to kind of get things going. Make sure everything is connected and the audio is right. So we've done 10 of these open sessions before, and I wanted to do another one because, well, I had a few different ideas, but it's been a while since I've done, one of the videos, whether it's an open session, a text reading, a CWJah talk. So felt that the open session would be a good way for us to catch up, also kind of introduce maybe a new segment I'm going to do either with the open sessions or on its own. Also give some updates. I've been busy, but you haven't seen any videos, right? So what have I been doing? Well, we'll kind of go over it. But let me just make sure I have everything the way I want it here. We'll take our time today. No rush. I kind of like it that way. That's what's good about open sessions, right? Because it's more relaxed and we can take our time. Whereas when I do our text readings, of course, we're following the text. I had the, I'll save that for the updates in just a moment. I was going to say I had the other text reading, the last one in Genesis, pretty much done. But for some reason I had to cancel it. I had to do something else, and so I wasn't able to finish the video the way I wanted to completely, and then it just snowballed from there. Got really busy, and so I'm still sort of where I left off a couple weeks ago, but with about 3/4 of that video done. I'm going to do a whole new one, probably right after this show. Just once I'm done talking today, doing the live stream, I will probably go ahead and just do the remaining Genesis text video, and then that'll probably be uploaded tomorrow so that it's not so close to this video, which will be up right after we're done. So, okay, I'll go ahead and summarize that in the updates too in a moment, but I'm glad you're able to join me. I'm sure a few others will join us soon, and then we'll have a nice couple hours in this afternoon, depending on where you are. Of course, I'm on the west coast of the United States in California, and it's a beautiful day, very nice outside. So I felt what better opportunity than now to just get back in touch with you all, give you some updates, let you know what's happening. And, I enjoy when we're able to connect and when I'm able to hear from you about videos or questions. And then, we keep producing the things that we believe are going to be helpful to people, if you're like me. But of course, we have a number of different people that join our shows at times, right? So not every one of them thinks like you or me, and that's fine. Right? Not everyone has to think the same way we do, especially on things that aren't the three that we hold the most sacred, right? And we give a lot of room. That doesn't mean we don't have views or issues or at times concerns for ourselves or others when they do things outside of, praising Jah, following Jesus, or following the golden rule, treating others the way you want to be treated. Outside of that, we pretty much, as Christian witnesses of Jah, we try to give the max room for people to grow and to be who they are, right? You don't need to come to me, nor I to you, for directions on what to do. Do you? If you do, well, like I said, you're probably not like me yet. At least not in the way that I'm talking about, CWJ. And that's okay too, right? Even if you never connect with me in that way, or, kind of follow that same path of three things, above and beyond all else. That's just the way life is sometimes, right? We can't get caught up with every person who doesn't fall in line with the things that we find most critical in life, right? I mean, we have different types of associations. We have our religious association. If you're like me, right now in terms of personally, that's not a big association, right? There are other groups who've been around a lot longer, but that doesn't always lead to a better group or gathering of persons who are desiring to do a certain thing. In our case, 3. So whereas there are other groups, right, like the Watchtower or other groups, just whoever, Catholic, various Protestant groups, Christian groups, who have been formed and who have been promoting their view of the text or the text, however you view it, longer. Right? We've been doing our thing for as long as we've been alive in different ways, and if you're like me now, we're doing CWJ And so, however long it takes, right, if that's the right way, if those are the right things, then each day is the day to do them. Who's to say how many of those we get? So, to the extent that we're able, we should use that and promote the best things, right? So why get caught up in with other people too much, right? We can't avoid everybody, nor should we. But to allow ourselves to get overly distracted on anything, right? Whether it's a work thing, anything that's not as important as something else. It happens because there's so many something else's, right? So many other things, but to the extent we're able to focus on the most important and keep that, as our sort of direction, right? That's it. You don't need someone else. Maybe at times we need suggestion, right? Or ideas, thoughts. We need each other for sure, just to express our thoughts. But do we need direction, right? Do we need someone to really tell us what's right? Well, I would argue no in two ways. The second way being the way that if you're like what we're talking about, right, CWJ, well, you've already come to that conclusion. Or have seen in the way that we believe without knowing for certainty, right? Just like every other thing. Jah's God, Jesus the Messiah in our view, right? We understand people disagree. This is our view. Golden rule. So those are our main three. It keeps us from getting caught up in too many things, but, we'll discuss a lot of related issues. And at times those are divisive too, right? Like Trinity and stuff. But at times they're necessary because people are confused. But I'm going to argue it's better that we don't confuse them even more if that's the outcome we're going to end up with. Because if they're already confessing Jesus as the Christ, we have to accept that, right? So I try not to get too involved with people who've already done that, regardless of whether or not I'm concerned about some of their beliefs, or they're usually concerned about mine, and mine are just three, right? I can point to the text and say the same thing, so it puts you in an awkward position, but I try to focus on the ones who aren't in that condition, right? Because they stand before the Master directly in their confession. So while I may interact and discuss, and really, unless it's people who think like us, right, or focus more on promoting the things we believe, I try not to engage them because it's not going to create the kind of condition that we need. Right? What do we need? Do we need a condition that's going to allow us to grow in ways that build families and promote the simplest but most important things, and that keep us from arguing about the most important things? Or are we going to create a place where we just kind of come and argue and try to show who's got the best arguments or can promote their ideas the most? Part of that's involved in everything I think we do, but to what extent, I don't think that's mainly what we do. I think that doesn't bring out belief in people, right? It really doesn't. Even the text and acts where you see them engaging in others, oftentimes they'll just leave. Even when they were with Jesus Christ in John 6. So if they don't believe the Master, even when he's presenting, quality teaching and truth, we shouldn't be surprised that not everybody's going to like what we do. And so, but to the extent that I can use this channel and help promote just those three things, right? We talk about other stuff, all kinds of things, right? Birthdays, holidays, whatever we deal with in life. And that's a lot of things. So just because our three main things stand above everything else in life, that's because that's life, right? God being the source of life. We can show that scientifically, historically. We've done it. We'll do it even more. Jesus, right? He's our life that is given again and that redeems us from sin. And so is the real life all over again, right? Or that we lost. Right? And so in treating others the way we want to be treated, well, that'll help keep us alive too, right? So we're not likely to lose our life if we're treating others the right way, although that's not always the case because people are going to do what they want and then be judged. So that's the law of this life and the way it goes. But, the three things we promote aren't things that are going to really take away from anything else that's important. So when it comes to things like holidays, birthdays, the video I did, well, we can use those same things, right? What does God tell us? What are the principles, laws he's laid down? What are the people that we assign as faithful followers of his? What have they said and shown by example? What is the Son? What have the Christians shown there, right? And so all these things connect, and I always find something satisfying. I could do a video about almost anything, I'm sure, like you could, because everything in these texts and related to them is high quality. I once had a person, I was doing a work assignment in some of the work I do involving property inspections. This was several years ago, but I had another person out there, and he was I think a building contractor, I'm pretty sure. And I was out there as a claims inspector. And, but we got to talking, and I think he either knew me from something else. Yeah, I think something had come up and he knew who I was. And so, and I'll get to your questions and comments in a moment, so hang tight. We got a good time today. Thank you all for joining me. But I have a few things I want to say. So I was at this inspection, and the contractor, after he recognized who I was and we got to talking a little bit, he was like, I can't believe, with everything we know today, that people still believe in God. And I was kind of like, he wasn't, you'd had to be there, right? He wasn't being, even though it sounds like it's like disrespectful in the context that I'm bringing it up, it was and it wasn't. So that's all I can really say. If you weren't there, I wouldn't be able to bring you into that moment to where, to trust my judgment. But I just engaged on the same level, right? We were talking on an open level. So it was okay to kind of say what he thought in the way he thought it. We were talking about several things. We were waiting, I think, for the owner to show up. And so I thought about what to say, Obviously, what's your natural reaction to that? Well, if you're like me, right? Or if you're like George, and I'm sure like others, you're going to think, okay, well, I have to stand up for belief in God now. I thought about that, and I almost did. It's the natural reaction. And this is why this stuck with me, why I'm telling it now. I thought, well, I remember I had a few moments where I thought about it, and I thought, well, I had about 30 seconds to really kind of establish my thoughts and the right way to respond to what he had said, what I just mentioned, right? With all we know today, I just don't understand how people can believe in God. What would you say to that? I'm sure you'll hear that. That's kind of, I think I heard that again one time as well. Either on some show or in another encounter. I have so many, and this would have been after that one, of course. This was the first time I had that question really pulled on me. This was probably 10 years ago. Probably 10. Between 8 and 10 years ago. No, 8 and 11 years ago, because it would have been around 2009 to 2012. So, because in 2013, it might have been a little bit in 2013, because I changed work. This is how I know that. So I'm dialing back my history of where, and when I did that work, what I'm talking about. So at this inspection, that's what he said. And he said, we were talking kind of openly, like I said, so just can't believe with all we know today, referring to like whatever science, whatever he thinks we know today, whatever, what all these institutions teach, basically, right? And for people who don't actually think out of the box and do their own research, I guess, and so I kind of can see that. I try to give a person the benefit of the doubt and then respond the best way and expect the same thing, right? And it usually works, but everyone's different. So in any case, what I said was, I thought, well, I could get into a discussion of God and that whole argument and position. But I thought, well, the owner's going to be here soon. It was something like, what's the quickest way to deal with this, right? Rather than get into a discussion of evidence. Well, what about this? What about that, right? I said, well, don't you think there's a lot of wisdom in all of those ancient texts that were preserved by these famous people? And it caught him by surprise. I'll never forget the look in his eyes, because it was a look that said exactly what I thought it would say. There's nothing wrong with that, right? In other words, I got him to agree. He kind of said something, it was kind of like yeah, I can see that, some type of thing. It wasn't like an enthusiastic, yeah, okay, now I'm going to run out and read these texts. It was like, yeah, I could see that. So I was able, And this is just situational, right? It's not like every time I've had some question, I've gotten it right like that. I mean, so that's why this sticks with me. This is one of those times. And I'll never forget that, right? The look in his eyes. So sometimes we need to pick the best option, right? The best beliefs, the best reasons, best way to deal with individuals, right? The situation, the season. Is every single time and person and place right for the same thing? I don't think so. Maybe some part of a core element, right? Your core moral self, right? Who you are as a person is sort of always connected with the moment and the thing that you're dealing with. But that's why, what does Jesus say, right? Don't rehearse beforehand. It doesn't mean, of course, and I don't want to necessarily reinterpret it. It means what it says. That is, don't rehearse beforehand what you're supposed to say. The Holy Spirit will tell you in that hour. I've always found that to be true. I've felt satisfied every time I've relied in that way. But it's not always something you can do, right? It almost takes you discipline to keep your mind from thinking, oh, let me go check this, right? Let me go read this. Well, if you've already read it, especially if you've read it twice, it's in there. It will come back. And if it doesn't come back perfectly, it'll come back in the way that you remember enough to say what you have to say. So now you have to trust. If you've read it once, and especially if you've read it twice, it's in there. Almost assuredly, to some extent, that you can rely on when you need it. And that's why Jesus said that, right? We have a spirit inside that if we rely on and we trust, well, why would he leave us dust to not have the right thing to say if we rely on him? That's having faith, right? We have faith because we've read accounts of people, including the account of the person who said that, and then the people who believed it before us and did these things that have grown into what has become something that we belong to, Christian faith, right? So this is something that has endured a long time, belief in this person, Jesus Christ, and those who followed him the earliest and who gave their life during a time when the Christians were considered, outcasts, basically, right? Jewish fringe, weird group that had to earn their way. They had to earn their stay. And to do that, they had to proclaim their faith. And in that, they gained life and they continued the kingdom of the Christ. And so that's what we're here to do. That's really what my channel's here to do, right? CWJah Tube. Although I customize it in a way that I hope will, give you a little bit of an insight and familiarity to my life. And also, when it comes to things like non-Christian type videos, whether it's videos on my Growing Up Right motivational communication playlist or the CWJah Tube Lounge, right? There's going to be videos, there's going to be music, there's going to be things at times, I'm sure, you may not 100% agree with or like the way it sounds. I can appreciate that. I know. And sometimes I have to make a judgment. I exclude a lot because I don't think it really is appropriate to the level I want the channel to both be a light for Jah, help people, promote the Christ, but also be a person, right? So people can relate and live their life and say, oh, okay, well, so here's someone who is showing faith, right? It's not a perfect person, someone who's just over time tried to help people believe in these things for good reasons, right? Whether it was with the Watchtower or doing things of my own or as CWJ, that's just been my motivation all along. You just grow as a person, and so you see better how to do it if you continue on, right? We all go through those periods of adjustment, especially if you go through changes in your religious affiliation. You got to survive that. That's very tough. But if you make it on the other end, or if you don't go through the kind of transition that many of us do, and because you kind of see us before you get too much into a group, and so we kind of maybe help you keep your faith, let it grow. That's the idea, right? Really, CWJ, in addition to the three things, and really as part of it, is how can we help other people as part of number 3, right? Golden rule, treating other people. But also 1 and 2, because that's part of our faith, right? To help people believe in the right God, follow the right leader and do the right thing. Right? Not to do what we say, not to always listen to what we listen to, not to have to like everything I like, right? But where it concerns the things that really matter, right? They really tie into why we're here and able to do what we do, right? Whether it's things that we think are maybe on the fringe or questionable, we make that an issue over 3. That's it. Right? Now, there's some things tied to it. Right? It's obvious if a person is directly violating, say, for example, things like commandments regarding blood or pornography or idols, right? Continuing to involve, drinking or eating blood, excessive, abusive sexual practices, things like in the Apostolic Decree, the things that were outlined there. Idols, right? Things like even the John says, guard yourselves from idols. So if a person's doing those things excessively, what would that show? Well, it would show that they don't regard the things that represent the sacred texts of our faith outline. These aren't controversial, right? They can be when it comes to things like blood, maybe, and sometimes with pornography, right? The extent to which sexual acts may involve. Those things we can't get into a person's mind or heart. Sometimes they can be more obvious, right? Where people openly flaunt things they otherwise claim to believe in ways that they're harming people, right? They're not just weaknesses or practices that can be tolerated within the boundaries of what the texts indicate. You're not going to be worshiping the one true God, Jah, or following Jesus, the merciful teacher, right? Not the Pharisees, right? There's a big difference between Jesus and the Pharisees. Yet who were the religious leaders of that time? So you have to be like the Christ, right? If you want to be an example for other people to follow, you have to be doing the things that will show them what to do, and then it's up to them to follow. It's not up to you to go to people if they're smoking cigarettes and say, that's bad, you shouldn't do that, I can't associate with you. If you don't like it, don't go around them or tell them, you know what, I cigarette smoke really affects me. I like you as a person, though. So anytime you want to hang out, let me know. But if you could just maybe step outside or let me know and I'll step outside. So that's just an example, right? Maybe you walk in on someone and they're watching something, a show that's rated whatever, right? Today it wouldn't make much difference. And it's got something you find inappropriate. You can openly confront that person, make them look bad in ways where you're really just stating your point of view, even if it's correct. Maybe it would be better that you first find out where you're going and what they're watching before you come in and make a spectacle of it. Right? Or later tell someone, or just say, oh, I just forgot something, I got to go. I'll call you later, bye. Right? If it's something bad, like, maybe an abusive practice of some kind. I was going to mention one, but I want to get off on the topic right now. I'm sure you can guess if you try. You gotta allow people the room to be who they are. If you don't like it, be who you are somewhere else. Or don't invite them, right? You gotta know who you're having around you. Or if there's things they do that you don't do or that people you're around maybe, it's not always easy. Or maybe it can be easier if we stop being so judgmental, right? But that's hard to do without compromising if we have a certain view. I get it. All right, so I think just being tactful and allowing people space to be who they are and see what kind of fruit they produce, being who they are, then you'll know, right? I mean, we have people and examples in the Bible of persons who did a lot of things that were wrong, almost everything, and yet they were still used because they kept going. We're all going to do things wrong, but not all of us are going to keep going. And if you don't help a person keep going, I'm not so sure you're going, right? I mean, isn't that the whole goal? Isn't the goal to reach out and help people whom you already know are having a hard time, even if they're doing well in life, right? I mean, isn't life just at times difficult because it can make you complacent, even if you're doing well, right? So we have to always be alert, yet not panicking or paranoid. And then, creating a condition that make people overly focus on things like dates and prophecies and end times, right? Shouldn't people be able to determine on their own whether we're in the end times? What does Paul say? You don't need anything to be written to you. He writes a few things, right? Whenever it is they're saying peace and security, these kinds of things. Very brief, very basic. Right? He talks about things like to Timothy, describes the people who would be there at the end. But I mean, does he go on and try to figure out all these things? No, he's not preoccupied with that. He's really focused on what? I would say the Christ. Proving Jesus is the Christ and then living your life. Right? Not being judged by these different standards. Right? If you try to make someone subject to one law, what have you done? You've subjected that person and yourself to every single law. Is that not in the sacred texts? So, you should never be requiring anybody to do anything except treat each other the way you want to be treated. That's what Jesus said. Do this and you will live. Worship God with your whole heart, soul, and mind. Yahuwah quoted the text. And treat others the way you want to be treated. Along with faith in him is the Christ. Right? Which is what he was doing at that point, but telling him the other two things. He didn't say do this other stuff. What did the lawyer ask him? How do I get life? I say you repeat the answer of the master. Praise Yahuwah. Follow the golden rule. And if you're doing those two things, you're believing in Jesus Christ. It'd be very difficult for me to find a person. I guess it's possible, right? A certain Jew might find in the law of Moses and the laws of Jah, those two principles, which Jesus said make up the whole law. So we have to be helpful. That's what this channel is really about, trying to help people grow. It's not about what you already know. How can we grow? Or how can we help that person who doesn't know, who's constantly affected by different, news groups or things? In fact, let's take a second. We're going to kind of branch off here for a moment. Let's do a little news reviews. Let me bring up the page here. And we're just going to take a look at what's currently in the news right now. Give me just a moment. And let's take a look at Yahoo. So, let me kind of bring it in focus. If you notice in the description of the open session show for today, I put in quotes news, reviews. I was thinking the other day, maybe I'll do a news segment, where we just kind of meet and start going through the news and almost on a daily basis point out things that are either false, misleading, or not helpful, damaging to society, fake. By then, no, I'm already kind of involved in different, lists. I got the translation issues and text readings and, of course, open sessions, CWJah talk. So it's tempting, isn't it, to busy yourself up with all these different ideas that you may have. So I thought, well, let me just use the open session and let me see if I can make this a little bigger. And still in the, Let me just use the open session and we'll just add as like either a regular feature or an on again, depending on how often I start doing open sessions. I'm going to be doing more videos. I'm going to be doing more text readings. We'll continue, finish up the next Genesis text reading. Then we'll get into Exodus pretty soon after that. I just got really busy with work in a good way. Right? I mean, when work comes your way, you almost have to take it unless you just don't want it at that time. And right now, I try to take as much as I can because things are really getting off the ground in a couple of things I'm doing. And as a result, I'm also spending more time preparing to unveil a new blog for my insurance consulting and claims work. And I'm going to be presenting a new company in that front as well. It's a lot of new things that are going on that will also involve more travel. So I want to hear from different people, especially if you're in the Philippines, Japan, Hawaii, Europe. There are a couple other places, but those are the main 4 where at some point in the next couple of years, once the restrictions are lifted, I plan on going. So I want to hear from you if you're there and you're kind of solidly based. I'd like to visit if we're going to be near each other, meet with as many like believers as possible, right? Start to just have a good association with other people around the world, right? I mean, I have a lot of time, a lot of opportunity at this moment, and taking on a lot of additional work that I have been right now has helped kind of lead to some of these opportunities. So, but I try to gather it up, get it done, right? So then I can take a break, and then before a lot of new work comes, since I do my own thing right now. So I work pretty much when I want to, although you have to still take the work, right? Or you're going to want to when you don't want to. So, but I've been able to sort of develop these cycles where I can spend a lot of time getting the work I need to done, taking care of the responsibilities I have, and then get back to the channel videos, get that going. But on the back end, what you don't see are some of the developing things involving my insurance work, new blog, new company, new website. I'm redoing my insurance book. I wrote an insurance adjusting book about 13 years ago. And it's going to be basically the same, only with another section about another side of the adjusting world, until it'll basically be comprehensive in that regard. And also other lines of insurance I'm going to get into. So I have a lot developing there. Several blog articles are ready to go, and videos that I've been working on. So I'm trying to manage both channels because I have to work to live, right? And I want to, of course, praise Jah and do these other things in life. Stay connected with you, help you guys grow, and just provide as much down-to-earth but reliable content that I can. So with that in mind, I wanted to do this segment on the news. We hear so much about the news. And what we do here is we talk so much about Jah, the Bible, related texts, reliable history, why we think it's worth our time. Right? We don't just accept it because we've been taught that, or, we just hope it's true. So much more to it. And yet, when we look at the news, they rarely really present anything. Occasionally, you'll see an article about an archaeological find. That's about it. It's often, if anything, you're going to find that deal with life in any related religious context. It's more so involving prehistoric life and what they believe happened in association with this timeline and their view of evolution. So, well, we'll see. Let's see what they have today. I just pulled it up now. In fact, let's go ahead and refresh it. All right. So I think you can see it pretty well. Now, this whole coronavirus, so they've said numerous things, right? I mean, like they're saying now, they have these experts saying it's airborne. They said it wasn't airborne. Then they said masks don't work. Now they're requiring masks. I mean, it's difficult to know what to believe. And in the same way, right, well, it's not as difficult to believe all the different things that are taught in the Bible. Everyone has to choose what to believe, what to do. Well, we can help you. You can help me. But you're not me and I'm not you, and we have to choose. So we get all these things, all this news, quote unquote, and it often contradicts itself. And so it's at times really not news. It's just the opinions of the people writing it or the organization behind it. It's controlled information. Sometimes it's still news, but we'll take a look at the rest of it in a moment. But this coronavirus claim appears to me to be associated with the requirement for masks, which is something that, while it may help in ways that if you have the right mask, and you can look it up on your own, I'm not going to get into it and talk about the details. It's out there. Unless you really have a hard time finding out what to do, I think you can, unless there's some unusual reason why you can't, situations you're in. But the virus itself is clearly not very fatal, right? We don't like anyone dying from anything, right? But it has, I believe, a less than 0.05% chance. So that's less than 0.5%. That the fatality rate, it's been fairly consistent. So the danger, the way they associate the virus so much so with fatalities, or it's more so now being more described in terms of infections, right? But it's really the fatality rate that should be the most pressing issue. And then the question becomes, to what extent do masks help lower or prevent fatalities versus causing them? Masks inhibit your breathing unless you're wearing the right one. We're not meant to be breathing regularly less oxygen. We need all we can get. We don't need too much, but you know what I'm saying? Then you're often, if you don't have the right mask, or even with many that are out there, you often are breathing back in some of your own toxic exhalants. So I just am not convinced by much of anything these people have said that you have to wear a mask. I think it would help protect against excessive moisture emitted from your mouth or nasal area if you're sneezing or blowing your nose a lot around people with a mask. But if you're doing that and you have a mask on, right, you're going to have to lift the mask and do that, and then it's going to be on the mask, right? You're going to have masks with you, and right? So, I mean, hopefully you're not out if you have that condition. But here you have people at the casino, just a few of them. Doesn't look very packed to me. All with masks, right? You already have, I think they still allow smoking in these casinos. It's been a while since I've been there through a casino. I'm not sure if they changed that after COVID, but they're not very healthy places. So now you've got masks on, and you already have this. Now they pump oxygen into these places, I'm pretty sure. But, I mean, if they're smoking, all these people, and now masks, I'm just not sure if they're going to save more people than kill. And we know with the whole ventilators thing, that was all lies. The ventilators almost certainly kill those who are hooked up to them. 90% or more. Yet, what do you remember hearing for a couple months? Pretty sure it was around December, January, maybe February, when it really got going. I mean, all I heard the governor of New York, Cuomo, complaining about every day was ventilators. And they killed most of the people who went on them. Of course, then he sent a bunch of infected people to all the elderly homes. And yet all the fake news outlets like CNN and others that protect these high-level Democrats, they never talk about. That's news, right? The governor of New York sends a bunch of infected people to elderly homes and infect a bunch of elderly people. And then he's putting all these people on ventilators just so they die. Or not really understanding the survival rate before, moaning and complaining about the very things that are killing people, ventilators. So there's all this news. And of course, as much as they can get people riled up about COVID, be careful. But don't overreact. And we have to be even more careful now because of the contradictions that they keep bringing about, right? Masks, no masks. Airborne, not airborne. Are they reopening or are they not reopening? Is the fatality rate such a concern that we can't reopen and develop a herd immunity? It's going to happen anyway. So now we can protect people, and we should. We can lower the risk. We can help the elderly, or opposite of Governor Cuomo. But I don't know that, keeping ourselves from people and inhibiting our oxygen is the right way to deal with a fairly low, in fact, incredibly low fatality rate virus. Well, let's take a look here at a few other things. So, obviously, we got this guy, what's his name? Alice? Let's take a look. Alice Cooper. Talks early 80s. I don't want to hear. And I want someone to point out if you can hear, I'm going to play this real quickly. Tell me if you can hear this. And if so, can you hear it, correctly? Because I'll increase the volume if you can't. And then maybe play a few of these things and we'll go through them. Right here.
70s became the 80s, and rock mixed with new wave, and rock mixed.
Can you hear that okay?
Flush the fashion.
Somebody put in the comments whether you could hear that okay. Say something like sound okay. Because then I'll know whether to adjust that before I play additional parts of videos. And then that way I know the audio's right. So obviously, well, I think, Alice, you did it to yourself, right? You are the one who chose to do things in ways that made you look like this. Not good, right here. The kind of guy with the makeup, the clown eyes. But he's still alive. I'll give him that, right? He's still alive. Harry and Meghan, these two, in my view, are what you might call narcissists. I'm not going to give a diagnosis, of course, NPD or anything like that, but they appear very narcissistic to me. Harry has always been a poor decision maker. I've not been one to follow the royals. But Harry has, in my just casual observance of magazines and things on TV and his own videos, he doesn't seem like a very sharp tool. And Meghan, from what I know, and I have evaluated her, I've evaluated her association with Oprah and the whole Hollywood group of people and others. And of course, she had involvement with non-Hollywood studios and productions like Suits, but it all kind of ties in, especially when you get to where she is, right? She got into the royal family through Harry. Harry's on the outs. I wouldn't be surprised if they excommunicate him all of the Watchtower, or at least cut him off. I mean, he's an embarrassment. I don't know that you're legally allowed to get involved in politics of another country as a royal. I know he's not a working royal, but he still has titles. I think there's a problem with that. And of course, she's nuts, in my view, in terms of just looking for attention, right? She came out here, immediately tried. First, she lied to everyone from what I could see, claiming they wanted to be alone in Canada. And then within a few weeks, I believe, maybe a month, right before they closed the travel and borders to the U.S., they bolted to Hollywood. Hollywood is the last place anyone who doesn't want attention would go, or where a new mother would go. Can you imagine being a new mother and a new bride, and then leaving where you are, as royals, working royals in the British family, within a year or two, year and a half, bolting under, just all this drama, then down to Hollywood and promoting people like Ava DuVernay. And she's a terrible, disgusting person. Horrible racist and anti-Christian. Same with Oprah, right? What's Oprah spelled backwards? Harpo. What does Harpo do? He's the silent one. What's Oprah silent about? Well, she's in Hollywood. She knows about all of them. She's a part of it. And so are Harry and Meghan. At least they want to be. I'm right here, too. I can see everything. This is right in my backyard. And I grew up here. So while I know about Jah and Jesus, I also know about California, Hollywood, and a lot of different people. And I don't know Harry and Meghan, of course, personally, but I grew up reading all about Harry's mom, Diana, and Harry and William and the family and all these people. We all did. We all saw them all the time. And we still do it most of the time. Not as much, but it used to be all the time back in the 80s and 90s. And so she immediately gets involved with that horrible, disgusting group in Hollywood. We're going to get to the garbage dumps in a minute, too. In fact, right after this. Just to try to get in with them, because she knew if she could get in, she's already sort of on the in with Disney through Harry. Harry's a part of that whole thing, probably Freemasonry, right? Disney has the 33 Club, all that stuff, right? It's all nuts. Or whatever. People like it. That's what they want. Have it, right? I don't like it. It's not what I do. I don't need any of that secret stuff. I do what I do. I'm right out in the open with it, right? I'm private about what I need to be. But when it comes to religion, life, and these things, no. No, we're not involved in any secret society or anything like that. If they want to be, great. But with that comes a price. Usually you pay it with your rear end. And I'm not kidding. I know that's how that sounds, but still, that's how you get in with a lot of these groups, especially, some of the Freemasonry Disney type groups, whom Harry is obviously familiar with. And of course, Freemasonry goes back a long ways, at least several hundreds of years, if not longer. But it, goes back to Europe in many ways and still exists there heavily. So it's not a big surprise, right? So they wouldn't be surprised to hear me say this, right? It's easy to see all of the Freemasonic symbols involved with the monarchy. And so it's easy to see also why Harry and Meghan are together, right? Because they're the same. They're all involved in the same stuff. That's why they got together in the first place. Right? And that's why Harry is being led by Meghan. Because the Hollywood elites like to look at themselves as almost like royal, right, in a sense. And so rivaling or being on par with the actual royals through lineage and blood. All stuff that doesn't matter in terms of Jah, right? It's your heart, your person. Blood matters in some ways, but it's ultimately those things, your spirit, who you are. And these people, this monarchies from all kinds of races and peoples have ultimately abused their own people in many ways. So it's not like there's something super special, but they think they are. And in one sense or more, in some traditional way, it is in our world. But you see this sort of tug of war going on between Harry as the monarch rebel. And even though the monarchy I see is somewhat, they're very liberal in a sense. And I think even that's why it lends itself with Hollywood, right? You got the whole Prince Andrew involvement with Epstein. Now, I don't necessarily believe that has to carry over to every member of the family, like William and Kate and others. They seem to be detached from that. But they may have their own thing. Either way, this stuff goes high up, right? You had that pedo who was there, Jimmy Savile, with the Beatles and with the monarchy for many years. All this pedo stuff, and there's all these allegations of drinking blood and adrenochrome, how that would then also tie in with the whole Hollywood stuff, right? So either way, there is a level in these groups, the Hollywood elites and the monarchy elites, that is very similar, that connects. And that's what you're seeing in Harry and Meghan. All right, let me take a look here for a moment. All right. So I hope you guys enjoy this. We got a few things we'll do. And we'll do this kind of on a regular basis. There's always news, right? That's why I thought of maybe even doing it on a real feature. So let's just take a quick look, though. So that's kind of what we're confronted with right out of the gate on Yahoo anyway, right? Contradictory claim. All these experts, it contradicts what they were thinking previously. Tied in with this whole mask thing, which doesn't seem like as big of a help as it might be a hurt, although it helps in some ways. We get this rocker guy who's basically a clown. He's done. But I'll give him credit, right? He's still going on. Get credit for continuing, right? What does the Bible say? You live certain long because your spirit is mighty. We'll give credit where credit is due, but we will also ask you what happened, right? Hopefully we're not looking like that right here, this guy, when we get, 60, 70, 80. Either way, we will keep going, Jah willing. So we get a little of Olivia Munn here. Nothing special. Underwater rifles, super captivating bullets. Those are special, right? If you're thinking of death anyway. They have those super captivating torpedoes, too. At least Russia, and I think Germany does. That are very fast because they are able to travel within a bubble that's created in the water that makes them go much faster. That's what it means to have a super captivation. The United States Navy does not have a super captivating torpedo. It does have a number of very powerful torpedoes. Mark 48 torpedo, heavyweight torpedo, I think is the most advanced. Also with upgrades that allow it to sort of hover or maneuver around a target. So these different countries have these trade-offs at times where you might have, with Russia and China, an advantage on speed in terms of things like missiles or torpedoes. But when it comes to accuracy or being able to recognize a target, because it's not just being able to fire and connect, you have to hit the target, right? If you get close but not close enough, you might cause an explosion and some damage, but you might not incapacitate a warship or a target. So the United States is probably the most advanced, at least in my evaluation, when it comes to accuracy and being able to station your target and even hover around. There's certain countries like India too that have technology like the BrahMos missile that's able to do a maneuver. There's certain technologies that are maneuverable amongst the militaries, but when it comes to, I think, overall missile tech and torpedoes, maneuverability, right? So if a super captivating, a really fast torpedo was fired, let's say by a Russian sub, it has to hit. If it doesn't hit, well, then it's given away its position, and it now has to avoid what, let's say the United States, for example, is firing back, which would be a slower but a maneuverable torpedo, so that even there's almost no way it's going to miss, right? So the Russian submarine would have to basically sneak up on the U.S. sub and fire and be so in such a surprise maneuver and speed with the torpedo that it would blow up the U.S. ship in this example before the U.S. ship could retaliate. But if it missed, right, this is a disadvantage, or if the torpedo leaves the bubble, right, it loses direction. It takes on all that drag from hitting the water, and it would send it off course. So it's not just the speed. The Russian sub in this example would have to be right there and be able to hit in such a surprise that there's no retaliation possible. Because if it misses, then it's almost guaranteed that the Russian sub is dead. And that's why these encounters don't happen as often as you might think. Because there's just too much at stake, especially if you miss. All right, let's take a look at a few more items here. So we got stealth plane. There's all these articles, right? Brooke Shields. Nothing that's really special, right? I mean, I had to kind of dig into my knowledge. Oh, here we go, too, about super captivating torpedoes. I read this article. And we get some racial history. Just some stuff that's good. Some stuff, you never know what to believe on politics, right? Because there's so much going either way. They're trying to make everyone confused. Just look, it's the same thing. Believe me on this, and I only say it because it's what we already believe when it comes to what we believe in most, and that is the three things. Look at the fruit. That's the best way for you to see whether or not a person is reliable in any way, especially in the way they're talking to you. And so I will only say that when it comes to politics. I may say other things at times, but that's really, I think, an overarching principle and guide, because there's so much that's fake or that people will lie about on both sides or every side to try to get an edge, that if you're really trying to see who's best, right, who might allow for the most in terms of what we think is right for society, you have to look at the fruit. You have to look at what they have already done, and that'll tell you what they're going to do. Same thing in everything, really, unless people change, right? And then that should be evident too. Might be more recent fruit, but it should be there, right? Or it should be starting to ripen. Why you shouldn't drink coffee on an empty stomach, according to a nutritionist. Depends, right? Depends on your stomach, right? Because it depends on how well you can handle that kind of mixture in the morning. I think caffeine in the morning is probably a good thing for some people. It can help. And when you wake up, you tend to wake up if you get up. Caffeine can certainly help get your metabolism going, get your mind thinking. I think if you do drink caffeine, you should drink water too. You have to stay hydrated. You don't want to deplete yourself, because caffeine in any form will deplete you if you don't give back to your body the things you need. Vitamin C, vitamin Bs, water. The things you need. So you don't just drink caffeine. And don't drink it at all if it's not good for you. If you're not the kind of person that reacts well to these kinds of things, caffeine, don't do it. You don't need it. But if you're able to use it, make sure you're giving back to yourself what you do need. Water, vitamins, these things, minerals. All right, Chicago, violence erupts during holiday weekend. I added to our playlist, the Communication Growing Up Right video playlist, a video by Officer Tatum. I like it. He's kind of interesting. I find his experience and knowledge is relatable, and he knows what he's talking about in some of the subjects that I review him on. And he did one on Chicago recently and talked about how they set a record of homicides. We have all these people worried about all these other things that may have a concern attached to them legitimately. What about these things? What's going on and what has been going on? This is not new. This has been going on for years. What's causing it? Crime, drugs, gangs, lack of leadership, guidance, foreign influence, right? There's a lot of foreign gang activity in Chicago. It's a fact. A lot of other things too, and there's more that should be done too in terms of helping build the city from within. But it's hard to do that with so much going on that's destroying it from within. And so that's difficult to see happen. I'm surprised we don't get, this Black Lives Matter group. Why aren't they rioting in Chicago? I'll tell you why. Because they'd get wiped out. They're just doing those things. They're really a racist group run by 2 lesbian women, I think. Fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I read and saw in what I watched of the people who were leading the Black Lives Matter shows that I watched, and they were the leaders of the group. That's how they were presented. They're not here to help people. They'll help in some way, but ultimately, if you read their mission statement, they're here to destroy the family. It says that right in there. To destroy the nuclear family and patriarchy, right? To destroy male leadership. Well, what does that leave us with? Female leadership? Why is that such a good thing? There's no evidence that's a better thing than male leadership. I think most men would follow a female leader if she was a great leader in a way that would bring about a better world. There's examples of that in the history of man. But there's more examples of man because that's how men are made. So they're going directly against the way the Bible describes humans being made by Jah. Men being the head, men taking the lead, having a family. How many women and things, those are separate issues we'll get into another time, but certainly the Bible is pretty open in that way. Unless you're an overseer, in which case you only have one wife. The Bible's replete with examples of men who had more than one woman. Not of women who had more than one man, though. And so that's what often leads to the problems because they see it as an inequity. When really it isn't. It's just how we're made. There are different effects that happen with men who have more than one woman and women who are with more than one man. Studies have shown this. And again, the Bible is your guide, is it not? Well, what does it say about Jewish and biblical and Christian life? It's pretty clear in the text. But I don't want to get off on that too much. My point is they're opposed to all that. Whether it's one woman or many, they don't want the man having any, or certainly being at the head, right? And this is what we get. We get the destruction of inner cities because we have a lot of single women who are supported by the government so that they think they don't need a man in the household. And then the household grows, if you can call it that, without a man. And then the man grows without a family. Now, how does that help anyone, including the society in which that family is supposed to be growing and helping and being helped? None of it happens. And that's why you have these recurring problems. Same thing in our spiritual life at times, right? What happens at times with different people or groups when they get off the focus, right? When their focus is off the 3, Jah, Jesus, you, and me. We get all the apologetic nuts, right? We get off on all these debates and arguments and people stop believing, right? That's what's happening in the same way, in a different way in Chicago and other places where people stop believing. Not so much in the spiritual things, but in the spiritual thing that is physical, and that is the human family, the human being, in the right way, right? Instead of men being men and women being women and families being families and staying families, or working through difficulty and continuing in some ways a family, we get all this dysfunction, right? All these different types of arrangements, none of which work. If they worked better than the way Jah made us, that'd be one thing. They don't work. They never have worked. That's why these people keep trying them. See, they don't want to be who they are or are supposed to be. And you can't really work with someone like that, right? You can't work with someone doesn't want to be who they are. You can live in and amongst them, but working, growing, getting far, they don't even know who they are, or if they do, that's not who they want to be. Well, if you know who you are, right? If you're a man like me, and you're a male and you want to be with a female in terms of a family, or with just men in terms of a spiritual group of brothers who promote the truth. But in terms of families and what makes community strong and what would help places like Chicago, see, they've got that all wrong because it's not being promoted. This Black Lives Matter group isn't promoting the right family structure. They're fighting against it. They're fighting against the very thing that blacks and others, I don't like using color words, but I use it for convenience, and since many others do, I don't think any of us are a color, white, black. I think that's part of our problem is the color term usage. But for now, every group benefits from strong families and strong examples. Black Lives Matter is neither of those. And they're not trying to be those. And they're promoting the opposite of those. And so they're only causing what? What's their fruit? Destruction. More racism. They're all racists, right? Everything they say, you could listen and break it down, that I heard anyway, was racist. Really, it was just an ignorance of what really is happening in society in ways. Some truth, and then a lot of lies, a lot of just fake news. Stuff they want you to believe. Like that the nuclear family's bad, or that families are bad with a man. This is not true. So this is why we get these recurring problems, because oftentimes people who want help or who need help, they get these different people, like Black Lives Matter, if it's the African American community, and they're not really helping the right people. Right? They're not sending them the money that they need. And so we have to be careful, right? We may want to help people, right? We may see people being taken advantage of who are in a certain community of race. But if we're not careful, it's just like in the spiritual world, right? We may want to promote the Christ. We want to promote Jah and help other people. Well, are you going to do that with every Christian group that calls them a Christian? Calls themselves Christian? Or are you going to look at them and see whether the three fits? And they're going to allow you to do them without putting other things that aren't as important on the same level. Well, if you're going to do that with your religious views, why wouldn't you do that with everything else? Right? Why isn't that a good way to go about handling other things? Right? Look at the group. What is their fruit? Well, not what they're saying. That's what people say, as we know, is often different than what they do. And so, yet, what is it that we often do? We're either so busy or we don't have the time or interest to really find out what's happening. It's easy. It's certainly easier, even if not right, it's certainly easier to just look at the headline, right? Or to listen to the news. But if we're listening to fake news or news that's not correct, we could be misled, right? From masks, whether a disease is airborne, whether it's good to breathe in your own air or less oxygen, or politics, right? Those are two things that often come up. Or I'm looking for a science article or a religious article, as you can see. So what I scrolled through, we had the U.S. history, so more military news, 4th of July, famous women, eating habits, politics, military, personality. Let's see how long we go before we get religion or a science article that would involve something related to religion, like history, certain creatures, stay-at-home mom, 4th of July stuff, politics, military, national anthem, kids, grandparents, vulnerable, fraud. That's true. You have to be careful. There's so much fraud out there right now. Be very careful with any texts you receive, any calls, any emails. There's so many scams out there right now. It's terrible. All right, so we got celebrity stuff, foods, Sinatra. Most effective masks. Okay, well, we'll see if that is maintained. And none of them are really a good idea unless you need one. Because you should be breathing your own air. And I mean, you should be breathing regular air, not your own air or any part of it as you exhale. So as you can see, Ivanka Trump, Shia LaBeouf, more military. We're not getting certainly anything about Jah, right? I wasn't expecting that. Unless a new monument or stone or writing had been covered with the divine name in it. But even then, I think you'd have to read it to see if it had it in it. So nothing religion even. Sometimes you'll get something religion. It's usually negative, especially if it's Huffington Post. Be very wary of Huffington Post. In my own opinion, right? You do what you want. You may love Huffington Post. It may be your favorite news source. If you believe in the three things, and you're not going to argue with me about Huffington Post while we're promoting belief in Jah, Jesus, and the Golden Rule, I don't care. I don't care. Right? I may not be able to talk to you about the same news stuff, right? Or we'll have different views because Huffington Post is obviously a very liberal media source that, I mean, they're one of the most obvious outlets in terms of promoting the homo agenda, right? The worst type of relationship you as a human being could have outside of bestiality, and I would argue pedo, is certainly homo. There's no doubt, right? This isn't my opinion. This isn't me being mean. This is facts. This is science that you can look up and find confirmation that on average, homos lose 20 years of life. Then you have all the suicides, of course, just the lack of health overall, the constant, anal tearing and immunosuppression, and then even with female homos, lesbos, you're going to have diseases and conditions like increased lice and other conditions that are, lead to suicide and other abuses, because there's often, even if you're a female homo, you'll often have a male homo and different multi-gender involvements. And so you're going to have, and then you may be with a woman who was with a male homo, and so whatever sexual involvements they had would be passed on even among just a woman who just sleeps with one woman or women only. If any of those women have been with a male who's homo, anything that increased risk person has would be passed on to females through the bisexual. So it is dramatic. 20 years on average less life, not including the loss of functionality, right, that you have over time as you get older, all kinds of different stuff. Yet they promote that as like the best way to live. Huffington Post. And you read Huffington Post any day, I would argue, you're going to get multiple pro-homo or LGBTQ plus articles and videos, because that's what they believe, right? They're allowed to believe that, right? Just like we get our belief. But our belief can be shown to not damage you in many ways that what they're promoting do, right? So they're promoting a lifestyle, even that though it is legal and that people choose, right? Consenting adults, fine. It's still the worst choice you could make. It's the worst in terms of your life expand, life quality, and potential for disease and dysfunctionality and all the stuff. So it is the highest risk exposure, increased drug usage, suicide. So why would anyone promote that as like something to be proud about, right? They have these pride parades and things. Yeah, that they get to do that. But where's pride in what? What is it you're proud of? Being able to abuse another person? Right? They may not think of that, but they know what they're doing, right? So they know if they're anally penetrating someone, they're damaging that person, right? They're tearing open their anal organ, mixing bloods, all the stuff. So they're not like ignorant of it, even if they don't think of it as what it is, abuse. So where's the pride again? What is it one should take pride in about this abusive type of relationship that leads to, on average, 20 years less life and much poorer quality. Not to mention lack of spirituality and all these things that may still be involved with it to some extent, right? It can still be spiritual. In fact, part of many homo practices is highly spiritual, but it's not the kind of spirituality that really leads to a quality life. Right? That's why they lose on average 20 years, plus all the other stuff. So why would you promote that? Well, that's HuffPost, right? So they're going to promote all the worst relationship you or your children could choose. That's what they promote. And they promote the people that live and promote the worst lifestyle possible. So that's what I think of HuffPost. Let's see if we can find an article from HuffPost here. As you can see, though, it's basically military politics. I mean, we are near the 4th of July, so it's not a huge surprise. But you're really not getting any kind of positive information, history, facts like we talk about on the channel, right? Biblical texts, other texts, where they fit in context with the human history and experience. None of that. I could just scroll down like I have been for the last few minutes. It's the same things nonstop. I'm trying to at least get to one that would be in any way relevant to what we talk about. But since this is really a news review segment of this open session, it's fine. I mean, it's not uncommon that I have to scroll down quite a bit, and that's why I get familiar with a lot of these other topics, right? Because I'll go through different news channels, including Yahoo at times. Oh, here we go. The first article, I would say, is related. I mean, we went down a long ways. World Ancient Aboriginal Artifacts Discovered. Let's check it out. I consider this related because it could be an article that's going to say, how these are just thousands of years old in ways that are consistent with the evolutionary timeline versus actual, documented history. Well, let me check first to see if the audio was right on those videos. I may have to scroll up. I'll just take a look at your questions for a moment here. Get a chance to catch up. Okay, I'm not sure if I got a confirmation on the audio, so I may or may not play this clip. Just let me know if you can hear it when it does. I guess you should be able to. So let's go back to it. All right, so this is the first article we got to that I believe in any way relates to biblical or biblical time-related events. Ancient Aboriginal artifacts discovered underwater. Archaeologists have discovered Aboriginal artifacts in Western Australia's continental shelf dating back at least 7,000 years, which scholars say are the first to be found underwater on Australia's continental shelf. That's consistent with the biblical timeline, right? So they have found underwater artifacts datable to the time when this was not underwater. And that is about 7,000 years ago, which is exactly what the documented timeline and narratives of different peoples regarding the flood have determined or state. So this is actually consistent, and you will find that at times. Here, they're looking at it more in terms of probably the sea levels and things. And so that would be probably, in my view, more right versus the sedimentary testing of compacted settlement over a long period of time from different areas, sedimentary layers that aggregate around, for example, a fossil, and then they'll test just a part of it. So those are, in my view, very unreliable and done in ways that don't represent the actual date of the fossil most of the time. They may be reliable for the particle they test, but that's not the fossil. It's particulate matter, sediment matter that's developed and embedded itself around that fossil over time, or that was already there. from things that were there before the fossil or the animal died. In any case, we do at times get confirmation of things that verify the documentable timeline and the historical narratives. So here they found, this is July 5th, so this is brand new stuff, that we can add to our supply of information regarding the flood in terms of people being alive in different areas that are below water, being ground around the time that the Bible and other texts speak of them. Well, let's see if we can listen to this here.
Have discovered Aboriginal artifacts in Western Australia's continental shelf dating back at least 7,000 years. Scholars say they're the first to be found underwater in the region. The haul includes hundreds of stone tools made by Aboriginal people at two ancient sites. While the region is well known for its rich ancient history, the two sites are the first confirmed underwater locations holding evidence of human civilization on Australia's continental shelf.
Let me pause that there, because now if those same tools and things had been found on land, in the ground, they would have dated those things according to the ground in which they were found. Whereas here, they're dating it in association with the change in sea level. And that's different. And I believe more reliable because of the mass amount of sediment that aggregates around fossils versus this kind of dating and evaluation.
Project leader Dr. Jonathan Benjamin.
You can start to recreate what the people were doing and how they were, how they were making their lifeway and their economy at the time. One of the sites has several hundred submerged stone artifacts.
Divers from Flinders University retrieved the Aboriginal objects from what was once dry land at depths of up to 11 metres. They previously mapped and scanned the site before diving in. Data from the find is being analysed for precise dating. However, radiocarbon dating and analysis of sea level changes show the site is at least 7,000 years old.
Notice they mixed in with the radiocarbon dating the sea level, which is really a way to help qualify their radiocarbon dating of whatever it is they dated, right? We don't know. We'd have to know what is it that they took from the area surrounding those artifacts and stones that they dated, right? Why wouldn't it be another piece of sediment surrounding those items? You see what I'm saying? They're indiscriminately testing sediment in ways that either fit with a preconceived view, i.e. evolution, or because of things like the water change and the level at which they have calculated it to be related to the 7,000 year change, that then leads them to, in my view, radiocarbon date things consistent with that check, which they don't always have. In any case, we have to be careful about our dating and our accepting of dating by many of these people and articles and videos. This one happens to appear to be correct because of its corroborating evidence involving the sea level change, right? It's underwater versus found on dry land, embedded in soil. So I'll probably tweet this and Facebook it as well as another example of evidence consistent with the biblical and other narratives involving the flood and the time in which it occurred. So that's good. So our very first article was one we could use. That's why I do it. Right? That's why actually at times we'll just go through like we're doing now and review the news. I have to filter through a ton of it because there's so much of it that's either fake, not interesting, or just, you can tell like with Huffington Post, right, promoting the wrong agenda, LGBTQ stuff. I don't want to hear about that. Why do I care about that? You know, unless I'm helping someone who's in need, who's LGBTQ or whatever, plus. I'm not interested in those forms of lifestyle. Why would I want to be involved in or support abusive lifestyles that make the very people involved in them live less? Right? To me, that's abuse. You're supporting that? You're supporting them living worse and less? I just take a hands-off approach, right? If you're an adult, consenting adult, I'm not here to live your life for you. Right? But Huffington Post appears to want to influence people to live the worst life possible, in my view. We haven't quite seen that on this scroll yet, but I'm just mentioning it because I see that so often. But that's one we can get, so I'm going to make sure I keep that one. The Aboriginal Artifacts just discovered. It's an article dated today. So I'll put a link in below, and I'll tweet and Facebook that as well. I'll go ahead and grab that. And so you should keep that with your file of information and references that shows supporting evidence for when the land was different and when people lived about 7,000 years ago. Okay, let's just scroll through a few more, and then we'll talk about the garbage dumps. Oh, here's a HuffPost. Right here, Donald Trump is now America's #1 traitor. I doubt that, but I understand a lot of people don't like him. But you see how the HuffPost is, right? They're like, so that's not news. No one in their right mind, even if you don't like Trump, thinks that's a news article, right? Do we really think that's... we've got to find out this veterans group. Of course, if it's a real group, it'd be a group of veterans who are of a different party than Trump and don't like him. But you could find that on either side. So how's that news? See what I'm saying? They just don't like Trump, and they use their platform to attack him. That's what CNN does, right? I'm not saying other channels like Fox or others don't do it at times. They're worse. They're all over. There are more of those liberal outlets like HuffPost, CNN, and MSNBC, CBS. These are all stations that promote what? Well, what is NBC's logo? The peacock, the many-feathered bird, the rainbow, right? It's all homo stuff. Peacock, many-feathered bird. I don't know if you ever watched that video that Corey Feldman, he's the actor that was involved in some movies in the 80s, The Goonies, and a couple other movies. And he was famous with this other Corey Haim. They were known as the two Coreys to anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s. And when, all the things happened with Corey Feldman after Corey Haim died, and allegations of pedo against Charlie Sheen and others came out. It's all somewhat recent, but it goes back a few years. Well, if you watch that interview with Corey Feldman where he has the blonde hair, and it's like one of his earliest interviews where he's coming out against the Hollywood pedos. The one where he has the blonde hair, he says in that interview, he talks about, Hollywood and the different power players. And the interviewer says something, and Corey Feldman answers, and then he has a follow-up thought that he says to the answer he gave, and it's this. He goes, "It's a many-feathered bird," describing Hollywood and everything that goes on with the power players and the elites of Hollywood and the pedo. And when I heard that, the very first thing I thought of was NBC. Right? NBC, a many-feathered bird. All the colors, that bird, the peacock. See, Corey couldn't come right out and say it. And I'm not, of course, 100% certain he was talking about NBC. But he said something he knew we could see. I'm sure, right? Why would he say it? So either figuratively, he was talking completely figuratively, right? There's all kinds of things going on there. You never get, right? It's a many-feathered bird. But that's actually one of their main outlets' logos that represents several things. It's like even with the Amazon title and logo. Let's pull that up. Let's go to Amazon. All right, so see this logo right here? Well, up at the top, I want to make it bigger. Yeah, that's okay. So right there. I'm so sorry about all this other big stuff. See the logo right here, highlighted in the box? Look at it. What do you see? I see several things. One, I see A to the Z. Alpha, Omega. Right? A, not A to the A or A to the O. A to the Z. Alpha and the Omega. And not in the right way. Right? It's just like with the way Chet Hanks has Alpha and the Omega on his chest. The way they use it in a manner that is actually disrespect to the real Alpha and the Omega and the one he allows to be the same thing, whether it's the angel or the sun. Same one. I see A to the Z. You see anything else? I see a penis. I see a penile organ. Right? Right here. And then you got kind of the mushroom top. What else do you see? I see the Ouroboros. Eternity. Same as A to Z, right? Here's the snake's mouth eating its own tail. See it now? That's just 3 things that I wanted to share with you from the Amazon logo. Could be more, right? Okay, good. So we got, yeah. I was looking at some of your comments. So I thought you'd find that interesting. There's always more going on with these people. Always. Seems that way anyway. All right, so we'll move on from Amazon. Don't forget that. You got those 3. There's more. But now you see at least those 3. And that's all just in this connection. A to the Z, Alpha and the Omega, penile organ, and the Ouroboros, snake eating its own tail. Just 3 things I saw. There's more. Take a look. See if you can find them. Let me know. Little intrigue and assignment for you there. All right, so let's go back. So we have that stuff on the news. Oh, okay. So I want to do a look at some garbage dumps here. You know, I talked about before. I talked about before doing the unicorn store, and I'm gonna have you break for 1 minute while I go do something real quickly. Just hang tight, and I'll be right back, and we'll pick up with the garbage dumps. All right. It's another advantage of the open session, right? When you gotta go, you gotta go. So I thank you for your patience there. But let's take a look. You know, I was listening to some of my earlier shows, and I've remembered when I said it too. It's just I've been reminded of it recently. When I was talking about doing more garbage dumps, I brought up the unicorn store, which had just, at the time I'd mentioned it, it had just come out or was coming out, and starring Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson. But I just got so busy and and I really didn't want to watch the movie. And unfortunately, with garbage dumps, I don't have to, right? I can do the trailers, and and sometimes that works out even better, like with the Toy Story one, where I could do all the Toy Stories and just get the meat out of the trailer since there was so much. But sometimes I like to, watch the whole movie, like with the Star Wars one, and not necessarily review the trailer, just sort of talk about it, or with the Avengers one. But sometimes when we do the trailers, or if I show segments of the movie, you can see what I'm talking about. And that's really the main idea behind the garbage dumps is, the hidden imagery and symbolism. So, I like to point out the things like with the Amazon logo. Stuff I've noticed that may not be so obvious to different people, so you know what's happening, what's going on there, at least what people think about it. And then sometimes it's just good to talk about the themes of the movie and whether or not they connected and worked right. It's not so much showing these different symbols or images. But anyway, let's take a look at Unicorn Store. Let me bring you guys back in here. I don't know. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. Let's just look at it and see if it's worth. I have a sheet. In fact, I may show you in just a minute. I actually did do a review of the trailers, most of them, I think, and I noted a decent amount of stuff. But I wanted to see the movie and really find out how bad it was. But then I couldn't get motivated to really go and see it because of how bad it is. It just has that bad look to it. So I mean, obviously we're dealing with not just a creative theme, but there's a lot of and I don't think by promoting the rainbow in this way she's talking about Jah, or the covenant he made using the rainbow. Usually this is a way nowadays to promote homo relationships and ideas, and the unicorn, right, is often associated with these different things in ways that lead to non-hetero relationships, right? We're about hetero stuff, right? We're Christians. We follow what the Bible teaches in terms of men and women, what's scientifically provable, what's good for us. So we're not into abusive practices or swapping genders and all that stuff, right? We allow people to be, as long as they're not abusing people against their will. But promoting the thing that's bad for you, what's the point? Well, that's what they're involved in, right? This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, there should be enough material, do the garbage dump. That's why I brought it up. I thought for sure I'll do that one, and then I just got caught up and I just lost motivation because, well, I'm not into that stuff. But I am into the garbage dumps, right? So let's take a look. Let's look at these trailers real quickly. Unicorn Store. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta wait because I have to stop the audio. That should be okay. Even that, though. They'll copyright, they'll flag videos very quickly if you have a lot of their audio now. So rather than risk that, I'll just play the trailer. Unfortunately, we won't get the audio. But let's take a look, right? Is there garbage dump material? Let's see if I can be reinvigorated to do a review. Now, we're going to analyze this without... Let me see if I can get you in the full... It just doesn't look appealing, right? You see what I'm saying? I'm losing motivation as we watch it. But I'm gaining when it comes to the things we might see. So, let's just get that garbage dump going in there. Just line it up real quick. All right. And now let's get back to it. Let's see. So there's Unicorn Store. Now without the sound, and so, I mean, what are we really seeing here, right? A demotivated woman. She's getting motivated, has opportunity, at a new job, looks like, or at least in a corporate facility. Probably talking to a manager or someone who works in HR. Not doing the right thing, trying hard, finding her way, meeting someone new, a little bit odd, kind of getting a sense of things. And now she's really getting lost. This is dude. And there's Samuel. Ha ha! He's in full effect. Full pink outfit, unicorn. There it is. So I mean, I'm seeing a lot of things, right? And I don't like it. It's just stuff, though. But I'm looking for hidden stuff. If I have to do it like on a review level, and it's a movie I like I said before, Avengers, Star Wars, I can tolerate those, watch them all, talk about them. This one, I don't know. Let's see if we can catch anything. Okay, do I see anything happening here? I mean, I see, look in the background here. All right, I'm starting to see a few patterns. Definitely a diamond pattern here and here, which has some significance, as we've talked about before. It's on these two back walls and on these lower bar areas, but not a lot really, right? If I can find a few things that stick out again. What do we have here? Okay. So there's a lot going on right here, right? When I look at these things, I look for scenes, especially where there's a lot happening, to see if there's something that stands out. And we get the rainbow again. That's right front and center, right? A and B with an 8 looks like in the middle. I don't know. Does that look like an Ouroboros? A symbol of eternity? It kind of does, huh? Especially with that little, it just doesn't really look. Oh, look over here to the right. You got the checkerboard pattern over here. So we may have a rainbow, Ouroboros, and a checkerboard. Oh, we got, let's see here. We do have kind of a little checkerboard going there. Purple, right? Color of destruction. Not a whole lot. And I've got a little bit of sun. Keep making it hard for me to see in detail. There's a little bit of darkness in that background there. But all right, we'll move on. Is that a moon? It's really dark, isn't it? Look dark to you? Yeah, it does. There's a light scene. What's going on here? I can't make out the writing on the front. I see something, please, something there. So I don't see a whole lot. I don't want to skip it too. Usually I look at these a little longer, but we'll go a little faster. I was just doing kind of a cursory review. This may have to serve as my garbage dump for the Unicorn Store. I don't know if I can take one over it again. But I kind of wanted to go over it and at least bring it up. Let's see, what do we got here? Some kind of creature here on this board. Looks, you can see the hooves. Can't tell what it is though. It's got some rain picture here, clouds and rain. Christmas tree. It doesn't look like anything too significant, but still a lot of darkness on these outer edges. I can't make out much right looking at it right here. Maybe if I darkened everything, right? It's okay, so we have here we have the red and blue, right? The two colors traditionally used, especially today, to represent sides. And when they're combined, what do you get? Purple. Color of destruction on a butterfly. MK Ultra symbol. Oh, man, all these scenes, and they're set up, right? They know when there's a butterfly with those two colors in it prominently featured in the scene. They're not accidentally. They're not just saying, okay, just go sit over there. Just pick a spot, Bree. Just any spot. No. Everything is set up There might be a few incidental things, right? But most of the stuff, and here it is again. So we're getting it again, right? Almost like, what do you see when you think of this scene? What do you see? You see the butterfly associated with coming together of what? The two colors, red and blue. And what are they doing? They're coming together. All these things, man. Or woman. I might have missed something there, but what do we got here? Now I'm getting a little into it now. I'm starting to... let's see if we can get a few more like that. We're a minute 48 through a 2-minute 22 trailer. Just wanted to spend some time with you guys today, and you guys and girls, and everybody who likes to have me do these videos. I know we talk mostly about the Bible and other stuff, but and we have been to some extent. But open sessions, one of those things where I can talk about a lot of things and connect with you guys on levels that I don't always get to do in our other videos. So I think it'll help us build a better community, hopefully, and talk about other things in ways that'll make them more relatable and help me catch up on a few things, right? We'll see if this makes the garbage dump list. What do we got here, by the way? Find your way. So, okay, and I just noticed her whole outfit has stars on it, right? 5-point stars. Let's see if we can get to that again. What do we got here? Okay, now, here we're in the last 20 seconds, 18 seconds. But look, once again, on the table, you got what? How many of you ever seen a checkered board pattern chip napkin? You know the bowls they bring you with the chips? And they have that, it's not a napkin, but it's like a little, it's not plastic, but it's like that wax paper type stuff. How many of you have seen a checkerboard pattern chip paper? I've never seen that. If you've seen a black and white checkerboard pattern chip paper that goes between the chips and the bowl at the table at the restaurant, put it in the comments. Put capital letters. I've been at a restaurant. I've seen one. That seems like a pretty odd place for that kind of pattern. I've never seen that. I don't know. Well, we did see some things, right? In that Netflix, of course. So there were a few there, though. You know, I may pull it up in a minute. The list I did. Of course, we're kind of similar to what I'm doing now, although I look at things a little more closely and with the lighting better, so I can see even in the darker aspects of the screen. Let's take a look at another trailer. It's the second trailer. Getting all the colors, obviously fits, right? I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of that smile, that face. So I won't. Let's see if we can get anything from this list here. Explorations in Negative. Project Self-Portrait. So all of them, if you notice, I believe all of them had like just opaque, black and white, I think even colors, where she had all the different colors of the rainbow type stuff. But that's an interesting project, wouldn't you say? Explorations in Negative. No thanks, right? I think I'd tell the teacher, you know what? You go explore that all you want and give me another assignment, right? I'm not here to be depressed. You go explore negativity. I'm kind of with the unicorn lady on this one, at least from the looks, right? But it seems like such a dumb test. And she fails it. Okay, what do we got here? I kind of like these couches. I think you can see they do things around couches at times. Maybe not here, but I just want to check. Let's see if they change anything. So we get almost like a day and night type thing there. Sun and moon, day and night. Okay. See, so that's why you always gotta watch this. Let's see. Oh wait, See if I can go back to that. Okay, I did. Now this is the third kind of, and again, I can't see it the way I normally do because of the glare I'm getting from the outside and the dark aspects of the video, so I'm not able to see things the way I might normally. But I'm giving it kind of a cursory review, so I hopefully don't have to do anything more. And maybe we'll just put this up. Let's see. But I'm sort of getting into it a little now that I'm going through the process, right? So got these two men on each side. There was a third that came in too, right? So a lot of this we saw in the other trailer, so it might be duplicative. I'll try not to stop on any of the same things. And then, so if we don't find anything else, oh, wait a minute. I just noticed, and this was in the first trailer, and this is why I take a little time with these things. Remember, we saw this scene in the first trailer we just reviewed. What do you see now? Something just jumped out at me. You see it? The diamond pattern all across that screen, right? How many times that you're in a corporate HR or in an office area, which is where they are, right? She was making a photocopy in an office area. How many times do you find that their supply area or even file area has these giant enclosed, caged grids around them? I've never seen that unless it's like at a security building, right? So we'll grant, unless that's part of it, we're missing the audio, and I haven't seen it, but it seems a little odd to me that this is the scene and the entire surrounding background is diamond pattern, just like we saw earlier in the background in that bar scene. But here, I didn't notice it at first, so you see, going through things again or multiple times, things start to stand out. They love that diamond pattern, which has significance. Watch my Captain Marvel video for more on that. Let's see. So what are we getting here? All right. What do you see there? Once again, you can see the promotion of the feminine. Please keep the office clean. Your mother is something here. So clean after yourself. Your mother isn't here. So they're basically saying your mommy takes care of you. And they're at an office building with adults. You could pass this off as maybe an attempt at light humor. It's kind of dumb and insulting, especially to men. And we know they have a problem with that right now. The color red, we know that has significance as well. Being bathed in red, the color of initiation, hell, this stuff. They have all these different views. But whatever, right? It's just not our view. They're entitled to their views, but when they put them in our movies and trailers in ways where we're paying to be entertained and enjoy time maybe with our family, and we get all this stuff, all this subliminal signaling and association, maybe in the unicorn store, right? And if you look here, and it just done, look in the upper left right here, above Samuel L. Jackson, you see the diamond pattern once again in multiple ways connected with this sort of circuit-looking thing. Multiple pyramids and full diamonds. And here we again, right? See, sometimes you may think, and even I myself question, okay, am I making more out of that? Am I making more out of that than it is? Right? I mean, and then here it is again. And not just over his shoulder in a corner of the picture. It goes from that to like in your face type thing. It's like, let's give him a little bit, and then boom. And here's that same pattern I was just pointing out in both locations, on either side of Samuel L. And then look below him here. You've got these other diamond pyramid patterns as well. So, obviously somebody in Hollywood really loves the diamond pyramid triangle pattern, right? I mean, it's not just here or there in ways that you might expect, but it's all over the place where you wouldn't expect. And that's why it's suspect. Okay, nice big view of the... Oh no, should I watch this? Should I do a full review? It has stuff. There's stuff going on here. There's no doubt. And that's why I did do an initial review and wrote a few. So I saw this on the first trailer too, and I was going to go back to it, but I decided not to. Just let it go. But to me, really, that looks like, even though it seems like flowers, those could also be a bunch of suns. And that's a big image in the occult and in Hollywood because of its occultic association. The same thing we saw before. And again, you have checkerboard pattern that we also saw in that napkin in the chip bowl. Rainbow, but not in the Jah way, prominently featured in the middle, plus the looks like the Ouroboros, sign of eternity, the snake eating itself right here. We saw this also, of course, in the first trailer. But we're just kind of going through because at times you see different things, like with that one grid pattern we saw on the HR cage. And then they'll also add different parts of the movie to the newer trailers, give you a little bit more, so that without watching the whole movie, you can get a better sense of what's in the movie. So that's why I go through all the trailers. Again, you get the purple, you get the black and white checkered pattern. There's something in every scene almost with the significance that they want to associate with these things. I mean, we're associating, we're saying this, they're putting this in these scenes, but these are the things that they put in other places as well as in these scenes to associate their beliefs with what they're making. Right? You can see this all over the place. That's why it's all over these trailers. And we'll get back again to with what we saw in the first one. Let's see if we get anything else here in the next 30 seconds. So some of these things, we saw that before. The stars under. So this is that outfit that I only noticed in this faraway scene, but if you look right here, you can see that I have obviously 5-pointed stars all over it. Okay, so and again, I'm sure these movies, there's that checkerboard pattern as well. These movies have benefit and value for people who believe in these things, but this isn't what we do. It's not why I go to movies, to be, saturated with all this symbolism and imagery. Just give me a regular chip bowl napkin, right? Just give me a regular, bar background and paneling. We don't need all these pyramids, diamonds, and images that are associated with their own unique beliefs that most people do not share, and that ultimately are associated with the occult, abusive practices involving homo, pedo. Right? They're not associating these symbols with things that are benefiting people. They're destroying the family, destroying gender identity, destroying rear ends. Right? It's a fact. I'm not making it up. They're destroying our movies, right? Culture is more, relative to your own view of things. And as we know from the text, the world passes away. So cultures are not always going to remain. But there are certain cultures that are going to be better or more healthy to you than others. And the culture we have right now in terms of what Hollywood is promoting and all these different things, the music, pop culture, it's garbage. It's just trash. They're not presenting an uplifting vibration or sound or message. We reviewed all those news articles and we found only one. And fortunately, that one had accurate information that supported the biblical timeline based on evidence in addition to what they often use, which is the testing of sediments surrounding artifacts, right? The rising of the sea level, that they could chart more in line with what they were testing. So that was good. Nothing in the unicorn store, right? I mean, what did we see in there that seemed to be of any value? The only thing I saw was maybe the fact that they had, a hetero relationship, it looked like, right? Brie Larson and the man. I couldn't tell what their relationship was. They were on that date, right, with the bowl and with the checkerboard napkin or paper. So that's good. I'll give it a thumbs up there. But we don't know if he was a hetero or a homo and just out with her talking about unicorns and rainbows. So we'd have to watch the movie to find that out. But I'll give it a pass for now because I may not get to that. I may not make it to the full movie. I'm going to say at least we saw some sign of lingering heteroism in a unicorn store movie, right? I mean, it was fragmentary, but it was there. So we'll give that a little bit of a thumbs up. So I think that's about all I can handle on these garbage dumps. I don't know if I can really be expected to to sit through that movie and do a whole lot more than that. So I may have to let that go and just move on to another way, another movie, another series of trailers. But at least I was able to address, because I had mentioned it before. So now I may pull some or all of that portion on the Unicorn Store and at least put it up on the playlist so that when people watch some of my other videos, they'll know I was true to my word. Right? I returned to the Unicorn Store and we found a few things, right? It wasn't worthless, so we know. We had some confirmation of what's been going on. And all right, so let's see. I'm going to take a look at some of your questions and comments, and then I'll give you a few additional updates. So we have a couple comments here. Daniel Gregory says, so I have a question, talking to me. In doing these teachings in each video, what is your goal? Like, is this a new teaching, what you teach? If I take these videos and all the content you go over and take it to heart, what is your theology? And if I do take this, what church should I go to? Kingdom Hall? Babysit church? Excuse me. What body of believers do I surround myself with? So, then he goes on, ones that have the same sound teaching as mine, right? Or I would find them. Who will hold me accountable of being in a physical body? So I believe I addressed all of these things, right? We believe in three things. I stated that prominently, as I usually do, and I've done so in videos and writings. Jehovah's the one God, the Father. Jesus as the biblical Messiah, the one whom the Father sent forth as Savior of the world. And treating each other the way you want to be treated. Those are our three required beliefs. Everything else is up to you. And if you stumble or fall in ways that people need to hold you accountable, well, hopefully they'll do it the right way, right? You're responsible for you. You should be worried about yourself. And you should be out there promoting belief in Jah by highlighting information like that article we reviewed earlier, evidence of Aboriginal peoples on land 7,000 years ago where there's water now. Right? You can promote that evidence and praise Jah in doing so. You should promote Jesus as the Christ. Right? We've done numerous videos. If you're just asking this question because this is the first video you've seen, well, just watch some of my other videos and it'll tell you a lot more. But you can use the evidence that we have before Jesus was born to promote him as the biblical Messiah. And then the golden rule is our ethic, right? So the thing we follow when it comes to how we're going to act and treat other people. That's the measure Jesus gave. So you don't need people holding you accountable. You hold yourself accountable, okay? And if you get out of hand in ways where you're damaging other people or damaging the faith, well, maybe you're really not a believer. And if you are and you're just having difficulty, well, then other believers will help you and put you back on the right track. As far as who you surround yourself with, that's who you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with people who are going to put you back on the right track. Not people who are going to condemn you and make you feel terrible because you did what every single other person born on this earth has done, except for Jesus himself. Right? That's not how we're going to be. And if we are, then those aren't who we are. Those are other people just lying. You are supposed to be helping other people in ways that are appropriate for your relationship to them. You don't go and get involved in other people's lives. It's none of your business. You handle your own business. You let everyone else stand or fall before their master. which is not you or me. So stop thinking about being accountable. Take the rafter out of your own eye, and then you might see a few splinters in someone else's. Until then, I doubt you're going to be able to do anything unless your focus is on Jah and Jesus Christ and the simple rule they gave. You don't need anything else. What do you need else besides that? Everything else should be resolvable within those three things. If it's not, well, then you can join whatever group you want. You could join the Watchtower, like you said, or you could join the Kingdom Hall, like you said, or a babysat church. I don't know what you meant by that. Sounds kind of immature, right? You might want to work on maturity, right? You want to know the best way for you to act? Daniel Gregory, to act. Go out and start acting. Start doing. Why am I doing these videos? Well, what do you think is the reason I'm doing them? What does it seem like to you is the reason I'm doing them? I think it's pretty obvious I'm trying to promote knowledge and understanding of the scriptures and benefit other people who think like I do in terms of the three things, and anyone else who will listen. So if you couldn't gather that, I mean, I'm not sure you're really listening. Maybe it's your first time, like I said, but come on. I mean, you need me to break that down to you? You need me to tell you why I'm doing my videos? You can't just listen? So I don't know that you're really as serious as you think you are based on your questions. Once you're acting, right, once you're actually doing the things, the three things specifically, you won't need to ask those questions. They'll already be resolved. I find with people who ask questions like what to do or what should I go, they don't want the answer. How could they? The answers have been there the whole time. You don't even need me to tell you, right? Either listen to the videos or just read the text. They just don't want to do it. So they keep asking the question as if it's a way not to do it. Right? Because if they don't have the answer, why would you expect them to be doing it? They don't even know what to do according to them. When we all know that's not true. We all know what to do. Right? Do we not all have the knowledge of what? Good and bad. So how can you not know what to do? That's the whole point. We're held accountable because we do know. You may act like you don't know. You may say, I don't believe, but that's not going to hold. You do know. You do know Jah is God. Even if you're a hardcore atheist evolutionist, deep inside, when you reflect in your own mind and you see what we're all seeing and yourself and your thinking, it's not deniable. There's no other reasonable explanation but life giving life to life, and that life being intelligent and documented historically as Jah, according to the best available evidence. So I find these people who love to just say, what do I do? Where should I go? I'm happy to remind them and even tell them if, maybe people are sort of new on some level, and even if we have the knowledge of good and bad, it needs to be drawn out a little. I get that. But I just don't think it's really that hidden. I don't think it's that hard to find a path forward. You just have to be ready to walk it. And it's not always easy. Did you think this was going to be easy? How could it be easy? You're in the world, alienated from God and inhabited by wicked spirits and humans, with influence of good spirits and humans as well in God, but it's allowed to grow, the harvest, the field, until the time comes that there is an evident difference. So the way that difference is shown is by growing, is it not? We let them grow together until it's manifest. You're not growing if you're asking the same questions over and over and you can't answer them. Right? If it's the first time, maybe still you're kind of new, fine. Move on. You've asked the question. You should never ask that question again. Right? 3 things, Jah, Jesus, golden rule, go. What else do you need? Well, you need evidence, facts, information. It's all over the place. Right? We've reviewed part of it in this video. There's tons on my channel. And all, like I said, everywhere else. It's all around you. It's you. And you just need to be ready to talk about it, defend it, share it, migrate towards people who believe it. People who aren't going to judge you on everything that doesn't matter. It's not their place anyway. Right? That's a whole bunch of religions. They're all out there. If that's what you want, well, what are you doing here? Right? We're not that. You can go join any number of groups and find that kind of condition. we're trying to fight against that so that we can promote the main things that have to do with religion. And that's not our bickering over little things and differences. Holding each other accountable. I got to hold them accountable. So I felt, you know what you need to do? You need to grow up and hold yourself accountable and get back on the path and start walking again. And if you see someone fall down on the path, watch and see if they get up. And if they can't get up, go over there and help them. And when they get up and start walking on the path again, leave them alone. Unless they fall down again. You keep going. And then hopefully if you fall down the way that person did, they'll help you when you need it. That's the way you go. And if you don't see that, nothing else we say or do is going to help you on this channel. It might help in terms of the, apologetic nuts and stuff, right? You might get some ammunition, or some people just want new arguments or tools to help them in their whatever, I'm trying to promote belief, right? We engage on that level a little bit. And I will be getting back to the Bible and the Trinity and conflict videos because I think they have a place, they're important, and we're addressing it the right way, right? We're not saying that Trinity's demonic, in every level, and you're no relationship with God if you believe in it, right? I look at it anyway, right? It's not a required view. You can see it how you want because it's not one of the three things. The Trinity is a belief related to the three things that people have adopted to try to make sense of the biblical text, or just believe in church tradition more so than the text. And so, that's what they accept. But I try to look at it in terms of they're trying to solve a problem with the Bible, monotheism. And I'm just glad they confess Jesus as the Christ. I'm concerned, obviously, about the extent to which they believe in traditions that are against what the Bible teaches. But it's not always easy in ways that I try to move beyond, because I don't want to have to deal with a person losing their faith if they stop believing in the Trinity. You see what I'm saying? We have enough of that problem. We're dealing with people in the Watchtower, and we're trying to help them still believe in Jah, but not get disillusioned about the Watchtower, right? Or if they're in the Watchtower and they're safe there, it's not a good thing to want to have people in, but sometimes it's like an operation, right? You don't always know the right move to make. You have to trust in Jah and make the right moves that you have best evidence for. But once you kind of get too far into a person's life to where their spiritual view is affected, you really need to be careful, okay? Because we don't want people losing faith. It doesn't mean we don't address things that are a problem. I'm just not always sure how much certain things are a problem in certain contexts versus being able to help, right? How much of a problem am I going to solve versus how much am I going to help that person in a way that'll be more lasting? That's for you to decide, right? We don't promote the Trinity. We don't teach the Trinity. But if a person believes in the Trinity and they're not going to promote it or teach it or articulate the metaphysics among us, and they just want to worship and promote the three things, fine. Right? We don't need to control their mind. If that helps them get through monotheism in a way that, while that's not necessary, keeps their faith, I'd rather do it, right? We have to do everything possible to promote belief and have believers, not the opposite, right? So we have to pick the things that are going to inspire the most faith, in my view, and that's the three, that are going to give them the best grounding when it comes to spirituality, so that no matter what happens to me, to you, to anybody else, they're grounded, right? They have a grounding that we've been blessed to aid with that comes from Jah, right? He makes it grow. We plant, we water, but they get grounded in that process by Yahuwah, right? And then when the rains come and the flood waters and everything that Jesus talked about hits their house of faith, they don't fall down. That house keeps standing. And then their faith keeps standing, right? And now they don't fall away because their faith was in the thing it needed to be in to survive that storm. And if it's not, right, if it's tied to anything but Yahuwah and Jesus and the Golden Rule and those associations, it's going to be too difficult to weather the storm because everything else is much more controversial than the three. The three are self-evident, right? I mean, you can quote the text, one God the Father, 1 Corinthians 8:6. It's literally, you're just quoting the text, right? 1 John 4:13, sent forth Savior of the world, one Lord Jesus Christ. Right? These are biblical statements, texts. I'm not adding anything. I can. We can talk about it in relation to other texts and all the stuff, but we don't need to. That's the point. They need to. They need to explain it, articulate it, because it's not in the text. Right? It's not what they were thinking. Because we know what they were thinking. They talked about it. We don't read into it. So it's a difficult thing, you know, and that's why some of the apologetic stuff we get into, it can be testy and difficult, right? And because we're dealing with other people who are confessed believers, and we're arguing with them, right? It's kind of like weird, but we justify it by thinking they're in danger, right? They need a correct view of God or Christ, or they think the same of us, right? And so we justify this engagement by thinking the other person's in danger. And yet, if each person is capable of reading these things and studying them, right, and praying, and right, we're not like disabled or have a problem or limited to access, there really isn't a need for worry. The person can read and believe or not. Now, we might help, right, and we can. But it's still going to come down to whether that person wants to believe or not. You could say the same thing that you find helpful to 100 different people. It's not going to have the same effect. It's only going to help the people that actually accept it, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And that's why with your time, when you're dealing with other believers, whether it's Trinitarians or others, you're both claiming to be Christian, but you don't agree the others are Christian, right? If they're wrong in some way, that's a problem. It's a real issue. It's almost something you can't avoid completely because there's so much division today in that way. But the extent to which you can keep it to a minimum, right? Lessen that stuff, right? You shouldn't be promoting. That's like with the homo we talked about earlier, right? Homo's allowed. It's legal, right? We're in the United States. We can't discriminate against people with employing and stuff. But of course, you know, if they're not going to do the job right? If I hire a homo to teach a heterosexual sex class, and they can't not teach their homo tendencies, well, they don't qualify, right? It's not discrimination. You refuse to teach the text. So that's just things that conflict there, but otherwise we treat them all the same, right? We want them to treat us the same. Don't discriminate against us. If I come to you and want a job, and you're a homo who's hiring me, and I'm hetero, non-homo, right? What am I going to, are you going to hire me or not? Is it because I qualify or because I'm not homo? See, so we have that problem today. We have to be aware of it. But there's no doubting that it's bad for you, right? That's not disputable. If it is, it's easy to defeat, right? It's facts all over the place. So it's damaging, you know, but they'll promote it anyway. But there are a lot of people in the religious circles, right? So you have people in the social circles like HuffPost, other groups, right? They'll promote these damaging ways of life like they're normal. Unicorn store, all this stuff. But then we'll have in religious circles, like Christian groups, or among us different Christians, arguments about the Trinity and the divine name and the nature of God. And I mean, that's not good. That is not a healthy exchange among professing believers, right? It's not like we're all professing. We're professing it differently, but the object is, it's in non-Christians' minds the same, right? They look at us and they think, well, they all can't agree, and they're all claiming to follow, basically, right? Even though there's differences with church tradition and things like that, they see it as basically the same thing. So we're not making any progress when we do that. We're not progressing with other quote-unquote Christians, right? Because we're arguing with them. How often does it really produce anything lastingly good among the people who are quote-unquote Christian and they're arguing? Now, almost never, right? Sometimes it can be a good way to show our faith and help people who are on the edge, maybe they're brand new and it's like to see it for the first time. It helps set them on the path. But other than that, it usually makes people think we're nuts, right? Because we look like we're arguing with people who are supposed to be with us. It's not a good look. And then it gets to an actual level of insanity at times, right? We know that there are people who just, if you don't agree with them, they flip out, right? I mean, we may not like it if someone disagrees with us or teaches something different based on the same stuff, but not everyone goes nuts, right? Not everyone goes to other people's channels and, attacks them verbally or, saturates their videos with negative likes or comment bombs it, right? That's kind of a level of interaction that's not really... Does that sound like Jesus Christ? Right? I mean, we're not all perfect. We may have times where we get a little excited. And, of course, I'm sure the apostles and disciples of Jesus, they also had times where their personality overrode their attempt to do what he would do. But, I mean, that's the exception. That's not the rule. We're not supposed to be running around promoting the thing that hurts us the most. Right? That'd be like HuffPost. Promoting the thing that's the worst for human relationships. We're promoting when we argue constantly without purpose, right? Maybe occasionally. But when it's just like purposeless and it's like hot and nothing really positive is coming from it, it's very angry, that's never going to make people like us more. Never. It might reinforce your faith or a person's faith here or there, like I said, but it'll always make Christ look worse when we do that. That's why we have to pick our battles, right? We have to really be sure, okay, I can help a lot of people if I argue or debate right here, or if I answer this article or person right here. If the answer comes back, I can help a lot of people and not make people dislike the Christ more by doing this, go for it. If the answer is this might make us look, I almost said it, might make us look dumb or abusive to each other and, not getting, if it's going to make the Christ look bad, we've got to really be careful, right? Why would we want to do that? So if it's not making him look good, because we're supposed to be talking as Christians, see? And if non-Christians are seeing this or reading it and we look terrible doing it, that makes the Christ look bad. It's just a fact. So the only ones that keep doing that, in my opinion, are the people that don't care about how the Christ looks. They only care about themselves. That's why they keep doing it, even though it makes the Christ look bad. Right? If it made the Christ look good, right? Maybe we set up something good. I've done a couple debates. We know that. And I'll eventually put the other two I've done. I've done several others. I have a few other radio shows I'm going to try to get online. I will eventually put the White and Bowman debates up, but I'm trying to, get a few things done on those ends and other stuff. But if it's, I think the Maury, White, Bowman debates and the radio shows I've done, I've reflected on them. And I think I've been able to, in all of them, keep the right perspective. At least it seemed like that way to me. Didn't lose control with the other person or have it become unhelpful, right? Complicated and complex and angry. It was, I think in each case, fairly straightforward and clear. And, you could benefit from it. That's, I think, okay. Now, do you have to always do that? No. Right? Well, again, what's the best thing for faith? It's not arguing. That's a fact. It's not questions, right? Questions are good if you need facts, right? You need information. But if you already have them, right? If you've been studying the Bible for a few years, let's just say 5 years, and you don't know who the firstborn is, well, I don't know. If you know who the firstborn is and you keep asking the question like many people do, right? Who's firstborn? Just because they want to argue about it. It's not because they don't know the answer. We all know the answer. We may argue about the significance, but come on, right? We already know that too. Deuteronomy 21:17 defines it for us, as do all non-figurative texts, including the ones applying it to Jesus. So these are all resolvable, right? Yet they become these lingering facts and they take us away from building up our faith. But we're getting better, right? We've had a few incidents, but overall I find, in fact, George, I was just thinking of the one on 6 screens. It was you and someone else mentioned that they benefited from that. I have that. I'm going to put that up. I've just been busy, as you've seen recently, but it's on the list. That's going to go up. So I'm going to put as much as I can that will be helpful to people in a spiritual way, in a practical way, right? Growing up right. Videos. Well, I may not agree with everything every person I put a video for does. overall, if I'm putting the video on a playlist or a song on the track list, it's something I find is positive for the most part, useful, more beneficial than not by a long shot. But it doesn't mean you're going to like or agree with every single thing, right? We're different. That's okay. We get to be different as long as we don't offend other people without even thinking about it, right? We don't do that. What does Paul say? We consider other people. That doesn't mean we want them telling us everything we have to do either. It's the whole point of considering other people, right? It's supposed to work both ways, not the opposite way both ways. Well, that's what often happens. So, I guess to go back to an earlier question that was asked, why I do these videos. I do these videos. You want to know why I do these videos? And the real, of course, you know the real answer is I do it for Jah, right? I mean, I wouldn't, if I didn't believe in Jah, there's no way I'd be able to motivate myself to do these videos, knowing that most people don't agree with me. Most people, in fact, are at odds, or I have a large opposition, right? Whether it's the religious community, the non-religious community, or just the world in which we live, right? They're not Jah people for the most part. But we can still live with them, right? We can, but they don't always like to live with us. And so why I do these videos, it's ultimately because I believe in the three things. I really do. I believe those three things, if you practice, you will satisfy your obligation to God and to men, humans, men and women. So that's the ultimate answer and the truth for why I do these videos. But I'm going to let everyone in on a little secret on what really got me to actually do the videos. And it might sound a little strange. Now, maybe it wasn't. I mean, I was actually getting prepared to do things like this. I had done a couple other videos, but I hadn't migrated over to doing like the YouTube channel. I was getting ready to do it though, but it just had lingered on. And I was doing the day text, right? I was tweeting and posting my day text. I was translating, getting the CWJah forum kind of where I wanted it. But I think it was Betsy. It was either Betsy or Benzie Roy who kept asking me. They kept. I don't want to say nagging, right? And that would be in a good context, because I mean this in a good way. And I think about this every now and then. I think about, and obviously Jah motivated me, I believe, and I was working on doing videos, but I was having a hard time really just, doing the first video, going. But it was Betsy or Benzie Roy, maybe both. And they just kept asking me on my CWJah forum. I kept getting messages, and so I thought, well, you know what? At first I was like, why do they keep asking me to do these videos? Why don't, they do the videos? Or, why do I have to do the videos? Why do I have to do this more stuff? Isn't I doing enough, right? I wrote what I wrote. I debated what I debated. Why do I have to do more? And then I realized that I wanted to do more, and that I was able to do more. And that I really should therefore be doing more. And I just lacked that it's like in Jesus' illustration, and don't take this the wrong way, Betsy or Benzie Roy, but it's reminding me of it, right? It's like the illustration Jesus gave of the woman who came to the judge late at night. And I'm not saying I'm the judge or Betsy's the woman or Benzie, but it fits in a related way, because what does Jesus say? You keep on asking, you're going to get it. You keep on. Now, you don't want to overly burden someone, obviously, right? I mean, I have limitations. I can't just keep giving because someone keeps asking. But in this case, I was headed that way. I had already done a few things. I've been thinking about it. I think I've been talking about it, that it was coming. And she's like, well, when is it? Come on, you got to do it. She kept nagging me a little bit. But that's why I finally did. I said, you know what? I've got to do this. Or this. I've got this person this interested, Betsy or Benzie Roy, I can't remember which one. But at one point, I remember thinking, this person is this interested in seeing more stuff. I can do it, and I want to do it. So, okay, how do I do this YouTube? And I sat down and made myself do the videos so Betsy or Benzie Roy would stop asking me about it. But then I realized, now I can't stop. I got to keep going, right? Because well, why would I stop? Why would I ever stop promoting the things I want to do, the things I believe, especially now that I'm actually motivated to talk about it? So unfortunately, you're with me for the rest of the trip, at least in my case. And but doesn't that show you never can discount anyone or what anyone does? The smallest things just might be making the difference with what you view as very valuable, whether it's there or not, whether you get it or you don't, whether it happens or it doesn't. So never think you don't make a difference. Never think not trying for what's worth trying for when you're not unnecessarily burdening someone. And Betsy, but they weren't, right? They knew I could do these videos. They'd see my writing, see my stuff, a few other things, right? Bowman, White debate. So I couldn't deny what I wanted to do anyway in those respects. There was something that was missing that Betsy and Benzie Roy's persistence provided that got me to set aside everything else I was doing, right? I'm doing a lot. So it's not an easy thing to just start doing videos, even if it's easy because I know things I can talk about. It's not easy to just schedule and fit in, but it's what I wanted to do anyway. I ultimately wanted to do more teaching and reaching out to people, especially those who I knew believed in the things I did with Jah and Jesus and the Golden Rule, but who were having a hard time because they were losing motivation with groups like the Watchtower and others who, while they do provide benefits at times and help in ways, they ultimately are unfulfilling because they will take from you the very things you're looking to get from them. So once you get those things, if you're with them, to keep them, maybe you'll have to leave them. But that's up to you. In any case, I wanted to do what I'm doing to help the people who wanted to keep doing it, but who couldn't keep doing it with them or anyone else, but who wanted to keep praising Jah. Because when you're with the Watchtower or the groups, right, that's kind of easy to do in the sense that they provide these groups and outlets for ministry on levels that are structured and reinforced. Other groups do too, Mormons, others, right? So we lacked that and still do to some extent, but it's taking shape more individually through you and me and how we can promote the three, right? So it's not controlled in any way. It's more just how can you say these things and teach them to others. And so now we have at least hopefully useful videos, writings. I'm working on a translation, of course. I'll do the best I can, and I always will. And I think it will help many people and be useful for us in what we're doing. So that's all still happening. I'm working on it, but I get caught up. I get busy like everybody else. But I'm always thinking of you, Jah, promoting the belief in Jesus that we share, how we can do it better, and what we can celebrate together in ways that we don't now, how we can meet up. I'm thinking of doing some traveling here in the next year or two when the COVID restrictions relax. So my first thinking is to do kind of a Japan, Philippines, Hawaii trip. So if you're from any of those three locations, I definitely want to hear from you within the next year. And then at some point, I'm definitely going to visit Europe and various other places on that part of the continent. So maybe even locations like Northern Africa, right? It's close to that area. So it depends on what connections I make and people I'm able to establish reliable confidence with. So a place like Egypt is what I'm thinking. If I go to Europe, I may make it a trip, kind of like with the whole, I guess, Southeast Asian three locations, although including Hawaii, right? So Japan, Philippines, Hawaii. It's kind of how I was planning, an initial stage, but that's definitely going to happen more over the next few years. So I want to build our international community. I want to keep building our channel, right? We just keep growing, right? There's channels who are in the millions of subscribers now, but they didn't even have 1,000 until 2 years or more. I'm not saying we'll ever get to millions, but I don't even care if we grow more at all. If we've got 450 or more, I'm very happy with that, trust me. But we can always use more, and if we're helping more, that's always useful. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to build on everything we have, make it better and improve. But I don't think we need to do a whole lot more than what we're doing. That is, we need to do more of what we're doing, but not a whole lot more, right? I mean, it's enough. Right? If we're sending videos out to people, or if we're talking to them in person, or we're writing things and sharing encouragement, or doing what we're supposed to do to fulfill our obligation to Jah, Jesus, and follow the golden rule, you should feel satisfied. You should have a sense of calm within you. That while even though you might be anxious at times, that realization that you have found peace spiritually without feeling overly burdened and forced to do these things, but having a genuine desire, to give back to the Creator in the ways that really matter, and that no one's forcing you to do, but that you're compelled, you're stimulated by a desire based on what you hear and what you see. Now that's Christianity. That's what we need to be. So I wanted to do this session. I do have more videos coming. I had, like I said at the beginning, I did basically a 3/4 video of the last Genesis video we're going to do. But then I have a lot happening, right? So at times I get, as much as I might try to plan, it's not always possible because there's a lot I have to take care of, but it's okay. That's the way it is. Right? It's life. We all have to do our part. But I will get the Genesis text reading video out probably tomorrow. I'm probably going to do it right after this. Just take a quick break and then come right back and get it done. But I'll probably premiere it tomorrow, so that let this video sit for a little bit and not create too much viewing distraction. So I'll get that out tomorrow, Jah willing. I think we covered the unicorn store. We'll see if that's something I want to put up on the place or not. But at least I got back to it enough to where I fulfilled my obligation that I expressed in those other videos. So that's always a good thing. I will do more dumps though. Maybe if you have any suggestions on movies that you think, we're kind of out of movies right now because the whole theater shut down. But I'm going to go back. Right? I'm going to go back, and we've got tons of footage from trailers and movies. I think we'll have a lot of opportunity to uncover some really good trash. And by good trash, I mean things that we can watch out for so that we are not susceptible to them when we watch these movies. So I'll get that going again. I got CWJah Talk 31 that's waiting in the wings, but I have to get this next text reading out. Then I'll go back to CWJah Talk, get 31 up. That'll go back through the historical evidence that I believe most strongly points to Jah as the eternal, intelligent life who gave life to life, and whom we showed in CWJah Talk 30 scientifically has to exist, right? Or science has no meaning. It's one of the most establishable scientific facts. It's not a theory, right? They're in theories. We're in facts. A repeatable fact that happens on a daily basis more times than anything else, that is life coming from life, all the way back into eternity itself, because, of course, the fact that life can only come from life, again, as I talked about in detail in CWJah Talk 30, proves life must be eternal, right? Because otherwise there'd be a break in the chain. There'd be a point where if God is the last link, he had a beginning, right? That's what the evolutionists and the atheists sometimes say, but that's not true. That's scientifically untrue based on all available evidence. Life can only come from something already existing. And so there can be no beginning to it, since we're here now. All right? We wouldn't be here now if there was a break in that chain. And so I believe that evidence can be used to scientifically prove God exists. God's intelligent based on everything we can see that has come from him. And in CWJah Talk 31, I'm going to go back through the history of humankind that we have available to us, and do as I've done numerous times before, but in a concentrated video where I bring together the best evidence that I believe historically shows that eternal intelligent life is the God Jah.